have been with Miss Liu Ruyan for 5 years, but on the day before we were about to get engaged, Liu Ruyan suddenly had a car accident and lost her memory. I took good care of her every day, hoping that she would get better soon. I never thought that I would unexpectedly hear her conversation with her first love. The amnesia is fake. I just don't want to marry him until I really give up on him and completely disappear from his world. But he appeared in front of my house in a wedding dress, begging me Fang Yuan in tears, "Can you marry me again?" When Liu Ruyan opened her eyes, I stood up happily and you woke up. The doctor said you might never wake up again. I almost didn't dare to fall asleep, for fear of missing any news. Finally, I saw her open her eyes, and I had the urge of a sour nose. I held her hand at a loss. "How do you feel? Are you uncomfortable? Who are you? I don't know you." My words were interrupted directly. Liu Ruyan said this with a cold face. I was stunned. I couldn't believe my ears and barely raised a smile. My voice trembled slightly. Don't make such a joke. I am your fiancé, Fang Yuan." Liu Ruyan's beautiful eyebrows were stained with a trace of disbelief. He suddenly shook off my hand with an angry expression. "Don't talk nonsense. My fiancé is Boda." I was stunned when I heard this. Boda, I found this name from my memories. He was Liu Ruyan's ex-fiancé. At that time, the Liu family had an engagement. The two were childhood sweethearts and were well matched. Just when everyone thought that they would go to the end, the Ji family suddenly went bankrupt. The Liu family unilaterally announced the cancellation of the engagement, and the engagement of the two was also in vain. Facing Liu Ruyan's cold eyes, my helpless eyes finally fell on the ring on her middle finger, and my eyes lit up when I saw it. "No, Yin, you see we are already together." I pulled her hand, and the ring exuded a dazzling luster under the light. I explained incoherently, and Liu Ruyan's expression became more and more impatient with her, and she threw the ring to the ground fiercely. Liu Ruyan looked at me coldly and said word by word, "I don't care who you are. Get out now, I just want Boda." I went to ask the doctor what was going on, but he told me that it was amnesia caused by a car accident. I returned to the ward again, but was driven out the next second. Behind the door was her angry voice. "Get out," I said, "I don't want to see you." His friends stood in the room, looking at each other. Liu Ruyan remembered everyone, but only forgot me, and even her attitude towards me was bad. The door creaked, and her best friend Chen Shui came out. "Brother Yuan, don't be angry. He has lost his memory now, so it's normal to have a little temper. He just forgot about me." My eyes darkened and I smiled at him. "I can understand him. Just take good care of yourself." Chen Shui looked at me, and he was a little hesitant to speak. After a while he whispered to me, "Otherwise bring Boda here." "Brother Yuan, don't get me wrong. The doctor said that this will help him stabilize his emotions and he may recover earlier." His voice was a little stumbling, and he seemed to think it was not polite to say so. After all, I am Liu Ruyan's fiancé. I didn't say anything but turned my head to look at Liu Ruyan in the door and window. She was bandaged and her eyes were red. I asked Boda to bring her here. The eldest lady who has always been proud. Her voice is so sad at this moment. After a moment I heard my obscure voice sounded, and I entered the ward again. This time Liu Ruyan was particularly calm. She looked me up and down and said softly, "Fang Yuan, why do I want to marry you? Because we loved each other, because you loved me before." I opened my mouth, my fingertips were clenched white, but I couldn't say a word. At this time a man came in. When he saw her, Liu Ruyan's eyes lit up. "Ada, you are here." Boda came quickly. He knocked my shoulder away and looked at Liu Ruyan with gentle eyes. "Yin heard that you were injured." Liu Ruyan pursed her lips and nodded aggrievedly. It hurt so much that she was harassed by bad men every day. Who the bad man refers to is self-evident. I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and quietly retreated to the side. Boda suddenly walked in front of me and looked down at me. "Did you hear that? Yin doesn't want to see you. If you know what's good for you, just get out of here." This sentence is too reasonable. I took a deep breath. "Mr. Ji, you should know that I am her fiancé now." Before Boda could speak, Liu Ruyan suddenly looked at me. She looked disgusted, and the corners of her mouth raised a contemptuous arc. "Then let's cancel the engagement. I have never acknowledged you as my fiancé." The psychology that had been held for a long time finally collapsed at this moment. I looked at him in a daze. For a moment I even wondered if he had not lost his memory. My body trembled and I spoke in a hoarse voice. "Yin, please don't treat me like this. I can't stand Liu Ruyan's disgusted expression every day. Avoiding my actions like snakes and scorpions, at least don't be so annoying," I almost begged humbly, but Liu Ruyan just tilted her head. The red lips opened slightly, and a clear and bad word was uttered. "No, I feel sick when I see you." I was driven out by the triumphant Boda. Listening to the two flirting in the room without paying attention to others, I leaned against the wall, covering my heart blankly. Inevitably, my heart began to ache. I never thought that Liu Ruyan would say something like canceling the engagement. Even during our most miserable time, she never did. At that time, she broke up with her family, and I was in the most difficult period. The two of us were squeezed into a small rental house and lived a poor life. The eldest daughter, who never worked for money, secretly worked without my knowledge, just to buy me the watch I had liked for a long time on my birthday. The price of this watch was not expensive, but it was quite a lot for us at that time. I didn't know how he found a job and how he saved up the money piece by piece. In the biting cold winter, I looked at his dry and red hands and cried with heartache, but he just smiled with his eyes curved and whispered, "Because I really love you." But Liu Ruyan, who loved me so much at that time, did not do that today. He said to me with a cold face that we should cancel the engagement. "I feel sick when I see you." Liu Ruyan didn't tell me the day she was discharged from the hospital. I saw the news about him on WeChat Moments. The ring was specially bought by Boda. Let's see if it looks good. The picture is a photo of his hand. The ring on his middle finger is particularly dazzling. I put down my phone and I was a little dazed. The look of Liu Ruyan throwing away the ring a few days ago seemed to be still in front of my eyes. I don't understand why amnesia can make a person's attitude change so much. Or does he have never loved before? I dare not think about it, and I quickly shook my head. Liu Ruyan just lost his memory. I can wait until he remembers everything little by little. Whether it is a year, 10 years, or a lifetime, I will come back. When I arrived at the bridal chamber, I unexpectedly saw Liu Ruyan in the living room. When she saw me, anger flashed on her delicate face. "Fang Yuan, I didn't expect you to resort to such means. Are you shameless?" I was suddenly scolded and I was stunned. I tried to comfort Yin Yin in a soft voice. "I didn't know what you were talking about." His eyes were full of hostility. He picked up the pillow beside him and threw it at me. "What are you pretending for? It was you who told my parents to let me break up with Boda, and then trapped me here. Fang Yuan, you are disgusting." After hearing this, I immediately understood that the Liu family didn't want Liu Ruyan to have any contact with Boda. I pursed my lips and wanted to explain. It wasn't me. I hadn't said anything and was interrupted by him before I finished. "Fang Yuan," Liu Ruyan looked at me coldly, word by word. "Since you want to do this, don't blame me for being rude." He threw down these words, slammed the door and walked out. I looked at his leaving back, silently clenched my fists. Liu Ruyan came back with a smell of alcohol, and a tall man beside her was supporting her. It was Boda. He hugged Liu Ruyan intimately, put her on the sofa, and glanced at the porridge I had left aside. Boda snorted and laughed and said, "Yin is right, you are really a good dog." He walked up to me with contempt in his eyes. "Yin and I are going to use the master bedroom tonight. Please make room for me." I stood up suddenly, my anger almost turned into action. "You dare to do this? Look." I rushed forward, grabbed his collar and punched him hard. He actually dared to take advantage of Liu Ruyan's amnesia. Boda retreated again and again after being beaten by me. He couldn't stop groaning. Fang Yuan's words did not come from Boda, but from Liu Ruyan on the sofa. He woke up at some point and stood up with force. He was trembling with anger. He suddenly slapped me in the face, and my cheek suddenly felt dense and painful. I turned my head and covered my face in disbelief. The grievance in my heart almost burst out. I looked at his beautiful face, wanting to see if he would feel a little pity for me, but unfortunately he didn't. Liu Ruyan gritted her teeth with a fierce look on his face. He said, "How dare you hit Boda? Who told you to hit him? I'll hit him back for him." I felt a lump in my throat and couldn't say anything for a moment. He carefully helped Boda up and left me with only one sentence. "Fang Yuan, I really don't want to see you. Can you just die?" They went upstairs. For some reason, I could clearly hear the ambiguous sounds between them. I sat on the sofa in a daze, and the pain in my heart could no longer be contained or suppressed. "Liu Ruyan, you will regret this," I murmured to myself. I entered the study, suppressing the sourness in my nose. There was a wedding dress on the desk. Liu Ruyan had said before that if she married me, she would want the most unique wedding dress in the world. So, 2 months ago I started to design this wedding dress and I hired the best teacher. I sewed every stitch by myself. I touched the design on the wedding dress with trembling hands, and tears finally blurred my vision. Obviously we were about to get married, and it was obviously me who was protected by him so much. The next day, I got up and went to the kitchen to make him a hangover soup. Liu Ruyan often had a headache the next day after a hangover, so I asked an old Chinese doctor for medicinal materials and boiled the most suitable hangover soup for him. After waiting for a long time, Liu Ruyan did not come down. I went upstairs and saw her standing in the study. She was quietly gazing at the wedding dress, her long hair covering the expression on her face. I was stunned. What did she remember? I suppressed my excitement. I spoke softly. "Yin, what's wrong? Does your head hurt?" She raised her head and looked at me expressionlessly. "What is this?" I exhaled and followed her gaze. "This is the wedding dress I designed. We were about to get engaged, and you said you wanted a one-of-a-kind wedding dress." As I spoke, I couldn't help choking up. "Yin, please remember it quickly." Liu Ruyan didn't say anything, and I thought she would be moved. Suddenly he looked at me and asked, "Are you done?" I was stunned, and the next second he picked up a utility knife and slashed at the wedding dress fiercely at an extremely fast speed with undisguised resentment. By the time I reacted, the wedding dress had been ruined beyond recognition. Liu Ruyan then laughed heartily. "Come on, Fang Yuan's ring is gone, and now her wedding dress is gone too." He curled his lips and smiled maliciously, so that shitty engagement should be cancelled. It all happened too suddenly. I closed my eyes, feeling inexplicably tired. I forced a smile and turned to leave. "Yin, you are tired too, go back. Liu Ruyan really hates me." I realized it late and went out. Boda leaned against the wall. I stared at him. The scratches and kisses on his chest were dazzling red, proving how intense they were last night. He glanced at me with pity. How pitiful. Don't dream about things that don't belong to you. He seemed to have thought of something interesting, took out his cell phone, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Since you are already in such a mess, it's okay to show it to you. I took the phone tremblingly. I didn't know when it was taken. The indecent photos and videos almost made me red-eyed instantly. Boda took the phone and laughed provocatively. If you want, I can send you a copy. When he passed by me, he whispered in my ear, "By the way, your wife was great last night." After he said that, he suddenly pushed me aside and walked into the study sideways, leaving me standing there stupidly. The engagement banquet was held as usual. The Liu family found me and asked me to marry Liu Ruyan. If I cancelled the engagement twice, Liu Ruyan's reputation would be damaged. I was silent for a moment and agreed. I didn't want Liu Ruyan to be tainted by it. Any bad reputation. To my surprise, Liu Ruyan didn't react much to the engagement. He accepted it very calmly. The engagement party was rushed, the wedding dress and ring were bought casually. When I stood at the wedding banquet, I was still a little dazed, like a well-organized ceremony, not a real wedding. I was confused and thought, is this decision I made really the right one? Liu Ruyan and I are not in the same room. The guests have all entered. I smiled and walked forward to greet them. It was supposed to be Liu Ruyan and I together, but he hasn't come out yet. I think he is not ready yet. As time passed, when it was time to go through the process, Liu Ruyan still didn't show up. Whispers had already begun to be heard in the crowd, and the expressions of Liu's father and mother gradually stiffened. I whispered to comfort them, and looked at the door from time to time. Liu Ruyan would come. She had never lied to me. Liu Ruyan could not lie to me, until the makeup artist who dressed her rushed in hurriedly. Oh no, Miss Liu was gone. The lively venue fell into silence. The makeup artist stammered to explain. I was halfway through putting makeup on Miss Liu, and she suddenly said she wanted to go to the bathroom. I waited for a long time but she didn't come back. When I went to the bathroom to look for her, I found that Miss Liu was gone. I could feel the pity of everyone's eyes, and the bitterness melted from my mouth. I pulled the corner of my mouth. In fact, from Liu Ruyan's I didn't want to see her. I had a premonition but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that Liu Ruyan, who loved me so much, would do such a thing. I was afraid of damaging her reputation, but she didn't care about my face at all. I took a deep breath, bowed to the guests in the audience, and then nodded to Liu's mother next to me. Let's go and find Liu Ruyan first. I found Liu Ruyan in an alley. She was hugging Boda, and while they were whispering in each other's ears, I heard Liu Ruyan laughing and speaking. Her voice was charming and gentle. She said, "Boda, we can finally be together." Boda said something in her ear, and she suddenly buried her head in the man's neck and smiled foolishly. I didn't lose my memory, he was just lying to that fool Fang Yuan. I just don't want to marry him. My head was buzzing. I stood at the corner, my body began to tremble. I finally understood why Liu Ruyan behaved so abnormally, and why he had forgotten me alone. Everything was fake. The excuses I had made for him countless times ended up being the most fatal blow to my heart. I laughed out loud. The grievance, anger, and pain that should have appeared in me all turned into calm. I closed my eyes but my nails dug into my palms unconsciously. It was time to end. Father and Mother Liu also saw them. Amid Mother Liu's screams, Liu Ruyan finally found me. Her beautiful eyes flashed a trace of unnaturalness and then a vicious look. "It's good that you saw it, so you don't have to tell you again, Fang Yuan. I don't want to marry you." I interrupted what he was about to say and looked at him calmly. "Liu Ruyan, let's cancel the engagement." Liu Ruyan was stunned and his eyes widened slightly. He seemed to be unable to expect that I was the first to say this. After a moment he curled his lips sarcastically. "Why are you pretending to be magnanimous? You are also playing this game. When the time comes, don't kneel down and beg me to come back." "No," I smiled. "Never again." Lu Fu sighed deeply, and it would never be good to say anything like continuing the engagement again. The engagement was cancelled, and I moved out of the wedding room. When I thought of the traces left by Liu Ruyan and Boda here, I felt sick when I saw some traces of Liu Ruyan. In the circle of friends, Liu Ruyan often posted some photos of her and Boda, as if she was showing off proudly. Liu Ruyan has always been like this. I shook my head and started to clean up the new house. At the end of the cleaning, I accidentally found an album. It was the photos we took in the rental house. I squatted down and stared at the album. Suddenly I remembered that because I liked Liu Ruyan, I depended on my grandfather since I was a child. After my grandfather died in an accident, I was taken back to the Fang family by a group of people. They said that I was the child left behind by Mr. Fang, but I knew the meaning of this sentence very well. I was an illegitimate child in the most unpopular existence. Did I end this circle where interests are needed everywhere? I am almost a thorn in everyone's eyes. After the children of those families knew my identity, they began to bully me unscrupulously. I saw Liu Ruyan at a banquet. She was wearing a princess dress at the time, and the people around her surrounded her like stars in the sky. She was a princess high above, and I was a wild dog who could only beg for food humbly. The banquet started, the adults were toasting, and I was dragged to a corner by a group of children, lying on the ground like a dead dog. They kicked me with a grin and stepped on my face with their shoes. Sometimes I thought it would be better if I died like this anyway. The only person who cared about me was gone. I slowly closed my eyes until I heard that soft childish voice. "What are you doing?" The people around me suddenly stopped. Liu Ruyan stood in front of me looking down at everyone. "I don't bully anyone, but you actually bully others in front of me. You are provoking me." Liu Ruyan has a good family background. These words scared the group of children and they dared not move. They all scattered like birds and beasts. I looked at him in a daze, feeling a little scared, until those beautiful fox eyes looked at me. He stretched out his hand to me and said, "Get up, man, why are you crying?" Although his tone was fierce, the temperature of his palm was burning hot. This was the first time I felt the kindness of others. In an instant, tears rolled down my cheeks. For so many years, Liu Ruyan should have forgotten, and I would never have thought that we would end up in this situation. A few days later, there was a dinner party that I could not refuse. In desperation, I found a female companion to accompany me. The banquet hall was full of toasts and conversations. My companion held my hand intimately. We shuttled among the various people. I talked to them with a decent smile. There was the sound of glass breaking on the ground. I paused and looked up. Liu Ruyan was holding Ji Boda's arm, looking at me in a daze. The glass was broken at her feet. The female companion next to me exclaimed, and I retracted my gaze, lowered my head and softly comforted her. There was a shadow in front of my eyes, and I didn't know when Liu Ruyan stood up. When he came in front of me, his face was not very good, and his eyes fell on my female companion's hand. I frowned and felt a little puzzled about who he was. It seemed that this had nothing to do with Miss Liu. I looked at him calmly. Miss Liu Ruyan murmured again, her eyes confused. Feeling the helplessness of my female companion, I patted her shoulder to comfort her, and said to Liu Ruyan lightly, "Miss Liu, please stay away, you scared my female companion." Only then did she look at my female companion up and down with contempt and snorted and laughed. "It seems that your vision is not that good now." After that, she adjusted the hem of her high-end dress, like a peacock with its tail spread out. I just looked at her coldly, and I said again once, "Please stay away from Miss Liu." She paused, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Fang Yuan, how dare you say that?" My patience ran out. I let out a breath and said word by word, "Liu Ruyan, I think you must have forgotten the scene where we parted unhappily. Don't show it in front of me. You better not make me hate you more." Throwing down these words, I took my female companion's hand and left. I caught a glimpse of Liu Ruyan standing there at a loss, while Ji Boda seemed to be relieved. The banquet continued, but Liu Ruyan was nowhere to be seen throughout the whole process, but this had nothing to do with me. When I got home in the evening, my mobile phone suddenly received a call. Fortunately, the environment opposite was a bit noisy. Then the female voice of the traffic police sounded. "Hello, Fang Yuan. Come and pick me up. It's Liu Ruyan." I frowned and said, "It's okay, I'll hang up." "Fang Yuan, how dare you hang up on me? Don't hang up." His voice sounded drunk, sticky and coquettish. "I'm drunk, my head hurts." I took a deep breath. "Liu Ruyan, if you have a seizure, go find Ji Boda and don't bother me." At this time, a strange girl snatched the phone. "Sorry man, this sister is drunk and disturbed you." Liu Ruyan was still yelling on the other end. "No, this is Fang Yuan, it's Fang Yuan." After a moment of confusion, I don't know what happened, and the other side suddenly became quiet. I heard Liu Ruyan ask Fang Yuan in a low voice, "Do you still love me? Look, I must have drunk too much." When I heard this, I almost laughed out loud. How could I say something so nasty? I feel sick just seeing you. The other party stopped talking and I could only hear his shallow breathing. I just felt annoyed and hung up the phone expressionlessly. I heard from others that Liu Ruyan hadn't contacted Ji Boda for several days. I was not surprised. Liu Ruyan has always been like this. When she is annoyed, she will kick him away. Until I saw his photo in the circle of friends in a room smiling very brightly, with the caption "reconciled." I didn't understand what this sentence meant, but the room in the background was particularly familiar. I frowned. This is me. Why did Liu Ruyan buy the wedding house that was listed for sale by the agency? Was it to commemorate his relationship with Ji Boda? Late that night, it was raining heavily. Suddenly, there was a small knock on the door. I got up and opened the door. I was a little surprised to see the person coming. It was Liu Ruyan. She was soaked by the rain and her petite body was trembling slightly. My eyes fell on her clothes and I was stunned. I recognized the wedding dress she was wearing at a glance. It was the one I had sewed with my own hands, and it was also the one she had destroyed with one knife after another. At this moment, the wedding dress appeared in front of me intact again, but if I looked closely, some of the stitches seemed it was extremely clumsy, like a novice who had just started practicing, sewing it up bit by bit. Fang Yuan. Liu Ruyan's voice was nasal, and her beautiful makeup was a mess. The usually delicate young lady looked so embarrassed at this moment. "Fang Yuan," she called out again, and facing my expressionless face, Liu Ruyan's eyes were almost filled with tears. "I shouldn't have done that before. Can you give me another chance? I love you so much. Fang Yuan, can you marry me again?" I looked at him quietly. The Liu Ruyan who was smiling brightly in the rental house overlapped with him at this moment, but there was no ripple in my heart, and even the resentment had disappeared. Only then did I realize I really don't love him anymore. I sighed. I took out a towel from the bathroom and threw it to him. Just when his eyes lit up, I slowly opened my mouth. "If you want me to marry you, I'll marry you. If you don't want me, just throw me aside." "Liu Ruyan, there is no such good thing in the world. You should have known that I don't love you anymore." Liu Ruyan's face turned pale in an instant. She opened her mouth, wanting to explain something, but I closed the door directly. "Liu Ruyan, we should have said goodbye long ago." Liu Ruyan disappeared for a few days, but Ji Boda contacted me. His voice was a little hoarse. "Fang Yuan, let's talk." I was a little surprised when I saw Ji Boda in the coffee shop. He looked haggard. Ing Jun's face was full of fatigue, and he no longer had the arrogant look he had before. When he saw me, he gritted his teeth and asked, "What kind of magic potion did you give Yang? Why did you break up with me?" I lowered my eyes and spoke calmly. "You should ask Liu Ruyan about this and tell him not to harass me again." He was so angry that his body was shaking, but when his eyes fell behind me, he was stunned. Yin, I turned around and saw Liu Ruyan standing behind me with red eyes. When she saw me looking at her, she pursed her lips, but her bright voice was a little dim at this moment. "Did Yuan bully you?" I looked cold and shook my head. Liu Ruyan spoke incoherently. "If he bullied you, you can tell him." I said. I interrupted him. "There is no need. I hope that you two will not appear in front of me in the future." Liu Ruyan trembled all over, and a trace of grief flashed in her eyes. I got up and left, and I heard her choking voice behind me asking, "Don't you care about what happens to me in the future?" I paused and left without looking back. This was already a silent answer because wrong is wrong. Late affection is cheaper than grass. Almost every day I can receive a short essay from Liu Ruyan, long and short, telling of her regret and love. I took the trouble to block all his numbers. Liu Ruyan was silent for a while, and I heard from him again. I didn't thinking that Liu Ruyan would do this when I learned the news. He had already severed ties with the family. It was not a temper tantrum, not a break, but a severance of ties. He gave up his identity as the eldest daughter of the Golden Circle and his life of wealth and glory. Thinking of the last message he sent me, "If I could start over, would you forgive me?" I don't understand what he wants to do. I got off work from the company and found Liu Ruyan standing at the door of the company. When he saw me, he stood up a little stiffly. He was not wearing those brand name clothes, but the simplest white dress. Liu Ruyan would never look at this kind of clothes before. I glanced at her lightly and frowned. "You, what's the matter?" She lowered her head and handed me a lunchbox. "Have you eaten?" "I made this myself." I finally understood what she wanted to do. The young lady who had never touched water in her life actually cooked soup for me. The soup was so funny. The flattering look on her face was obvious, and her eyes were shining with expectation. I paused and took the lunchbox from her hand. The next second, I threw the bag in the lunchbox into the trash can. "I won't eat it. Don't come again." I didn't go home but went into a restaurant. This is a restaurant for one of my brothers. After learning that I had broken off the engagement, he insisted on finding a blind date for me. I couldn't refuse, so I had to agree. When I arrived, the girl had already arrived. Her name was Bai Ningbing. She is petite and cute, with round almond eyes that bend like a crescent moon. "Fang Yuan, you must be Fang Yuan, and her voice is also very cute." I smiled and nodded. Her way of speaking is playful and interesting. After a dinner, I felt much happier. When we said goodbye, Bai Ningbing smiled and slipped me a note saying, "If I am your dream female guest, please light up the door for me in time." I laughed dumbly, put the note in my pocket, and left the restaurant. I saw Liu Ruyan standing beside me. She had seen Bai Ningbing, who had just left. When she heard the footsteps, she raised her head with 2 lines of wet tears on her face. I sighed and reminded her, "It's too late. Go home." Liu Ruyan turned a deaf ear to me and just asked me stupidly, "Will you get engaged to him?" I frowned and wanted to say not so soon, but after thinking about it, Liu Ruyan opened her mouth happily. "What about me? You can go find Ji Boda and apologize to your family." His tears welled up again, crying pitifully, "But I only like you, I only want you." I stared at the disheveled Liu Ruyan and suddenly laughed. "What you said is so disgusting. I tell you, even if I marry a dog, I will not marry you." Liu Ruyan seemed to have all her hopes crushed. Liu Ruyan's eyes gradually dimmed, and she didn't want to see him again. I immediately turned around and left this place.